I'm just gonna wait for you guys to tune in. I don't have a lot of time today, but I'm just gonna try and answer as much questions as I can in the next 2 minutes. So, good morning, good morning. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. Let me know what you are or where you're tuning in from. Just 1 second, guys. I'm so distracted. I need to let me see if I can do up to 30 minutes. So I'm just checking my calendar, guys. 1 second. Okay, so welcome. Good morning. Olid from Texas, good morning. Sunnison, good morning. TT, morning. Ava, good morning. I'm on a plane right now. Oh wow, and you have that good of a service to get on Wi-Fi? Well, good morning. If your streaming is appearing, safe journey. I bet the airport is crazy. You know. Nadia, thank you so much. That's so sweet of you. I appreciate it. They say, if thank God you don't look, what's that phrase about if only they know what you're dealing with? We've had some more losses in the family and it's just, we're just pushing through every day, but thank you. I appreciate that. All right, guys. My name is, I don't know what's going on, why this thing keeps picking all these filters. Let me just put it on my regular stuff. Okay. Good morning, guys. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Aisha Chidole. I apologize. I'm so distracted. There's just a lot going on right now. So I'm a little distracted. And my allergies are also acting up. So if I'm sneezing too much, I might get off this live. Yes, yeah. K Battle says you don't look like what you're going through. Yes, that's it. But I hope everyone is well. If you want to schedule a consult with me, my number is 407-995-6567 or 678-325-1037. You can also call us on WhatsApp, or not call, you can send a text on WhatsApp, 404-333-8751. We don't really take calls on WhatsApp, just messages. Especially if you have like an international number, you can just send a message there. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right into it. So what is the 2022 VAWA processing time? I applied in 2022 November. This January I received a prima facie again. What do you think about timing? I think you're in a normal timing as everyone else. Guys, please stop getting frustrated with your lawyers about people get frustrated about the visa bulletin changing on USCIS's website as though we had control of it. Like, could you imagine, like, if we had control of it, like what we'll do? We'll make sure all our clients, they process their cases right away so that they don't have to ask us when their cases will be processed. Again, as a reminder, these USCIS case processing times, it's a double-edged sword. Why is it a double-edged sword? Because, you guys look at it and they're like, oh my gosh, it's going to take me this long, or I can't do any inquiry till then. The reason, because USCIS has listed that timeline doesn't necessarily mean that your case is going to take that long, even though VAWA cases are taking a longer time. And I've talked about this on live several times this month of what I suspect to be some of the reasons why, because again, you have to remember there is only one unit that processes VAWA cases. Every other case type, your case is finalized at your field office, right? Like if you have a marriage-based case and you live in Florida, you're going to be scheduled for an interview in Florida in whatever the closest USCIS office is to you. If you're in New York, the same thing. If you're in New Jersey, the same thing. But when you have a VAWA case, it is only Vermont that processes VAWA cases. That's number one. So only one unit is processing cases from every state in the United States, or anywhere from where you are that you're submitting a VAWA case. That's number one. Number two, these packets are much denser. They're much thicker than a normal packet because there is additional evidence other than good faith marriage that you have to submit for a VAWA case, right? Your proof of abuse, proof of good moral character, affidavits to support the abuse, psychological evaluation, police reports if they exist. So just by default, those cases take a longer time to review. Third, as you can see, that is why a lot of people started last year getting receipts later because they just did not have enough hands, and receipts that would take normally 6 weeks to 7 weeks. People were not getting receipt notices for 6-7 months. And then they created these new offices to process the receipts, but that is all they're doing. All they're doing is processing the receipts. Your cases are still being decided by Vermont. Okay. And then finally, there has just been an uptick of VAWA cases, whether that's because, people just found out about it, or there are people that are not being honest about their VAWA applications. But all those things have created an uptick, which makes these cases take a longer time because they are really, really, reviewing these cases with a fine-tooth comb. So again, we as attorneys cannot control the timeline, because believe me, if we could, we would try to review it as quickly as possible, or train other departments to be able to review it so that they can make a decision on your case. So we don't control that. Having said that, if you have a VAWA case, you can fully expect 3 to 4 years at minimum for your case to be decided. And now this is going to be for cases that don't even have any kind of request for evidence, that don't have any kind of like abeyances, that don't have any, there are two layers of request for evidence. Sometimes there's going to be the request for evidence based on your, in order to issue a prima facie determination letter. So that's where they kind of doing surface review of your application. And then there's comprehensive request for evidence where they've done like a substantive review and say, okay, these are the things that we need, in your case. Usually when you get to that stage, you know that they are reviewing your case and they will be making a decision on your case, anytime soon. And that's why you're in their file for it. But again, those people, of course, it makes your case take a little longer, but this is where you're going to fall. But here's the thing, and I've said this also ad nauseum. If you're eligible for an adjustment of status, meaning an I-485, when you submit your VAWA application, make sure you're submitting it. Make sure if you become eligible, like those of you, which is quite a few people, are going to become eligible in April, on April 1st. Anyone that's a green card, that's married to a green card holder, that's not a removal proceeding, that had a VAWA application, you will now be eligible to file your adjustment of status. The reason why we file these things concurrently, meaning at the same time, is so that you can at least get a work permit. You can at least get a social security number. You can at least get a travel permit should you need to make any international trips, which I personally don't recommend right now, but if you need to, you can. Depending on your personal situation, we'll need to know what your personal situation is. But the goal is that while your case is pending, that you have those, because it really is no different from you being a 2-year green card holder, a 10-year green card holder, because in this administration, that can easily be taken away as well, right? But all of them still offer you the opportunity to work, right? Which I think is very critical for a lot of people, because people think that, okay, I'm a green card holder, I'm protected, whatever it is. In this administration, if you commit a crime of any kind, they will take your green card. It's a deportable, depending on what it is, it could be a deportable offense where your green card can still be taken away from you. So basically, the key, of course, as I keep saying, is to be squeaky clean. And I will continue to say this, the number one reason why people get detained is traffic incidents. Like other than 2 people that have been detained at our firm, every person that has been detained has been a traffic incident. And I don't know how else I can say it to you guys or convince you guys. If you are not a 10-year green card holder, and even at that, that's pushing close. If you're not a US citizen, you don't need to be violating any traffic infractions. You don't need to be speeding. You don't need to be driving without a license. That's a big one. That's the main one we see. And sometimes we even see people who have a work permit who are still like they have a work permit, but they're still I just lost my train of thought. They still don't have a driver's license. If you have a work permit, go get your driver's license. You shouldn't be driving without a license, right? Also like broken, like not having tags, or expired tags or broken tail lights. But again, a lot of these things, in order for them to stop you, it's usually from either you speeding or giving them a probable cause when they see your vehicle to stop you. Over tinted vehicles, like just if you don't have citizenship, try to follow traffic laws so that you reduce any opportunity for anyone meaning law enforcement, to stop you for probable cause. Okay, but otherwise, everything is taking a long time, guys. I don't have control of this stuff, so I don't know why it's all taken a long time, but these things that I've just run down are some of the reasons, that we've seen as to why it could be happening. Okay. Okay. I filed for VAWA. My abuser is not a spouse, but a parent. Do I still need to live with them? You need to have lived with them, at some point. You don't necessarily need to still be living with them. So as long as you've lived with them at some point, you'll be fine. I came to the US with an F1 student visa, but I dropped out of college and I married to a US citizen. What do I have to do about it? And most likely, will Homeland Security show up at my door? Technically, they probably will not show up at your door. You're not a type of case that would get like a warrant for detention, but anyone is susceptible to an NTA. Whether or not you submit a new file, if you have an old file that was denied, whether like what we've seen in the past, you could file an appeal, you could file a new case, and then they would say, USCIS still has jurisdiction, but now they will still send you an NTA if they feel like sending you an NTA. Granted, we can try to terminate it, or like what I told you guys last week about our client that got denied before they came to us and they got the NTA, and we were actually able to get them their green card at the USCIS interview. The only thing now is that we're filing to terminate the removal case just because he now has his green card. But so those are the types of things that can happen. You can be issued a notice to appear, but they're not going to come showing up on your door. They come to show up on your door if they're going to detain you. But if you came in with an F1 visa without much else, you would not be a priority for detention. That said, if you are caught committing some sort of traffic infraction or whatever it is, and you're arrested for the traffic infraction, you could be detained. Otherwise, you should be filing, if your spouse is a U.S. citizen, for adjustment of status right away, and also making sure that you have evidence to show that you actually went to school. Because when you come with an F1 visa, if you come with an F1 visa, which is a student visa, and you don't go to school, they will basically insinuate that you came here fraudulently. You always knew that you were not going to go to school. So we always like to send evidence, like when we have people who, maybe started out as students, their I-20 or proof that they attended school, whether it was for a semester, 2 semesters, or whatever, and explain why they didn't finish their program. So that's what I would recommend to you. Do you work with marriage-based applications? Yes, we handle marriage-based cases, humanitarian-based cases that fall under like VAWAs, UMT trafficking visas, U visas, which are for victims of serious crimes. We also handle removal of conditions. If you have a 2-year conditional green card and you need to remove the condition, waivers of filing those 751s and every type of waiver. We work with that, and we also work with consular processing, so whether that's for family, marriage, fiance visa, and everything else. And we also do handle removal cases, depending on what we're pleading, on your behalf in removal, and some bond work. Bond means detention, depending on where you've been detained. So yes, we can help you with all of that. Can someone apply for adjustment of status? Can someone, oh gosh, the question just disappeared. Okay. Can someone apply for adjustment of status, noun, I filed VAWA in March of 2024, and he's a green card holder. You can apply as early as April 1st. So you got to wait till April 1st. After April 1st, visa's occurrence, you will now be able to add your adjustment of status, which is a game changer for a lot of people. For a lot of people, it now allows them to be able to get their work permit, their travel permit, and a social security number while they're waiting on their case to process, because as you know, that has a long timeline. And something that I've also just observed recently, because I told you guys, every time I see a pattern, I'm going to be telling you guys. In the past, when you file for a work permit or travel permit because you have an I-485 pending already, based on a U.S. citizen or LPI relation, they would normally give it to you. Now what we're seeing is if you have any kind of arrests that has not been concluded or has not been reported, USCIS will issue you a notice of intent to deny or request for evidence. They will basically say, we've been informed or we are aware that you have some law infractions and that we are not, or we may not exercise favorable discretion. Basically, because getting a work permit and a travel permit, it's not a right. It's just like a privilege that they give to you because your case is pending. So you have, you can work and do all that stuff. But if you have that, you always want to make sure that you let USCIS know. You want to make sure that you tell the truth, you present your disposition, certificate or disposition from the court, just so that they have everything they need to either approve you for the work permit or not approve you for the work permit. The other group of people that I want to talk to are especially to U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens who have criminal records anything related to a child. There is no point of hiding it, guys. USCIS knows. Every time the USCIS sends anyone, both U.S. citizens and the immigrant, an RFE based on, when they send you an RFE based on an arrest record, believe you me, they already know. They already know. But they want you to tell them or to provide the document of how your case was disposed of. So it is never a good idea to lie, because you're hurting the applicant or your spouse or whoever you're petitioning for, or like your stepchild or whoever you're petitioning for. So you want to make sure that you are doing that. Okay, I think I was told that I can 1 second, guys. I'm trying to see if I can stay on for another 10 minutes. So just give me a second. Okay. All right, let's see what other questions I have here. Someone on YouTube says, good morning. My VAWA case says your case was transferred to another office that has jurisdiction over your case. What does that mean? For most people in your life cycle of VAWA cases, your case is probably going to be transferred twice. If you were listening to me earlier, I told you guys that they've opened new addresses to collect and issue receipts just because of the backlog of receipts. Now, even if you send your stuff to those locations, they're eventually going to move over your file to Vermont, who has jurisdiction to review the VAWA case. And when the VAWA case is approved, they will transfer the file to your local field office. And your local field office is who would typically do the final interview, or who will make a decision of whether they're skipping the interview or approving or scheduling you for an interview for the 485, which is the adjustment of status portion of your application. Okay. I filed for, Nadia on YouTube says, I filed for VAWA in September of 2025. I received the receipt notices. How long will USCIS take to issue a work permit? The answer is going to depend on the country that you're from. in terms of when they'll be issuing. If you're one of the 39 countries, you're subject to the adjudicative hold. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that in a week's time, because in a week it's going to be April 1st, which is the 90 days that USCIS had mentioned, that we should hopefully know something by then. But, again, I will keep you guys posted once I hear anything about it. Yeah. Someone says I can hear. I don't know if the rest of you can hear me. You can just put a thumbs up to let me know if you can hear me. And for the people asking, I'm just going to do one answer. For the people from the countries that are banned asking why they've not heard any word till date in terms of a decision that they're waiting on. Again, remember, there's an adjudicative hold. So you're not going to hear anything until the adjudicative hold is lifted if your country is one of those countries. And if your country, this person is specifically talking about consulate. If you're from a consular processing case of those 39 countries, remember that outside of the pause based on public charge, there are still 39 countries that have a ban, a partial ban or a full ban. And so you're banned, meaning that they will not approve those cases. They will process it. And it's very annoying because even the Department of State, if you go to travel.gov, still tells you submitted, will process, but we can't approve you unless they lift the ban. Now, when I don't know when those outside of the US are going to have those bans lifted. They're reviewing it every 180 days. We're just in March. These bans started in January. So you're looking at least June for the first round of review to decide who they're lifting or who they're not lifting. So if you have that ban, you just kind of have to follow the process up until the point where they can make a decision. And I did say that after my consulate interview this week from one of the banned countries, I will let you guys know. This is not for the paused country. This is more for the banned country that I'm speaking of. I will let you know how they're processing it. I have an interview for Nigeria who has a partial ban, because what we want to see is if with in a marriage-based case, whether or not they're going to do an administrative closure, which is my preference, or place them in an administrative hold versus outrightly denying it based on the proclamation. If they deny it based on the proclamation, if the proclamation is lifted, then we're still going to have to now go through NVC and ask them to reopen it because the proclamation hasn't been lifted and they still want to use that same approved I-130. But I just basically want to see what it is so that I can talk more about strategy. Caroline says for the 75 pause countries, for the countries outside the US that have the public charge pause, I think we will hear something soon, but again, I don't know. We have seen, and that's why I'm always very, very careful with what I say to you guys before you guys say, oh, well, she said this, and so let me make a phone call. You said this, or whatever it is. The countries that have an adjudicative hold here, the 39 countries that have an adjudicative hold, we have started seeing some movement that typically happen at a decision phase. But that said, we have not seen an actual decision. So what do I mean when I say from decision phase? So for instance, if in order for them to make a decision, they have to look at everything and say, we don't need anything else. We have started seeing more recent RFEs from those countries, which means that they're at decision phase, which could mean they're ramping up for that. Or we've also started seeing, because I get some notifications for certain cases when the case has moved over to the field office, cases like I-EVAL cases, meaning that they're either recommending them for approval and they're sending the 485 over to the field office, but still waiting. So I'm knocking on wood. I don't want to say, I don't know, but there is movement happening, which is why I feel hopeful that in, April 1st, hopefully we should know a little bit more. Okay, I have about 5 more minutes and I have to jump off. Okay. I'm from Egypt, and Val was submitted on November 2022. Then I submitted expedite on March 2023. The request was approved. I was issued an EAD, but my VAWA 360 remains pending so far. What can I do? See, that's why I always tell you guys, when people ask me, oh, I think I should be eligible for expedite, I want to request expedite, I'm paying for expedite or whatever it is. People assume that if they approve your expedite, that while they're making that same approval, they're going to make a decision on your case. It doesn't work that way, guys. Sometimes you can be approved for an expedite and it can still take a year, or more for them to make a decision on your case, or maybe most people a year. Yours is a little long because if your expedite was approved in March 2023 and we're still here, it would be a long time from the expedite. I don't have the list off the top of my head, so I don't really remember where Egypt falls in the adjudicative pause, and I don't have a lot of time right now to check it. I was looking for my list because I have a list on my table, but there are 39 countries. There's no way I have 39 countries in my head. But if you are one of those countries, of course, you will be subject to that. If you're not, you might want to do an inquiry. Someone is asking, can green card holders be deported? Green card holders can be deported if you commit an offense. Yes. If you commit a deportable offense, yes, you can be deported. What are deportable offenses? Think crime of moral turpitude, things related to drugs, think multiple arrest records, think aggravated felony, think anything that is punishable by prison time, basically more than 12 months in jail. All those things are deportable offenses, and those things can get you deported. So you want to make sure that you are abiding by the law, even as a green card holder. Someone said, I texted your office on WhatsApp a few days ago, no response. I'm not sure what you texted, but if you can just circle back today on WhatsApp, and I'll just tell them, hopefully I remember this name. Let me just write it down so that they can check for you. If it was after hours Friday, most likely you wouldn't get a response till today, Monday. Okay, I'll take one more question and then I gotta jump off. It's been 2 months since I applied for citizenship. How long is the wait time? 2 months is nothing in the world of immigration, as I'm sure most of you know. Right now, it depends on what country you're from. We're seeing most cases, if you're not from a paused country, we're seeing most cases being interviewed somewhere between 6 months to 9 months. I'll say 9 months max is kind of what we're seeing, with most people falling somewhere between 7 to 8 months on average. We do have some people that they get their interviews scheduled within 2 months, 3 or 4 months. But citizenship is one of the areas or the types of application that moves quickly, the fastest, because the review process in terms of the documentation load is, the least. And basically there is a policy of a timeline of when those could be adjudicated by. All right, guys, I do have to jump off. I hope you have a good day. If you want to schedule a consultation, contact me. If you're a client, as you know, I will never answer client call discussions on live, because of attorney-client privilege. Use your portal, send emails, the process, follow that process. All right, guys, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. If I don't have an interview, I got to confirm. All right, guys, bye.